Well, good morning. Senior FBI official Peter Strzok out at the agency, canned on Friday. In Washington, a well-kept secret because we didn't know until Monday. That's pretty amazing. Peter Strzok fired, and one of the men who's been tracking all of this is Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch. Now, Tom's here with us in the studio, and I got to point out, Tom, that you're joining us just after the President of the United States quoted you extensively talking about Peter Strzok all over his Twitter account this morning, quotes from Tom Fitton. So rather than just read them out to you, let's have Tom himself explain his reaction to Peter Strzok's firing. You think, Tom, well, welcome. You think this has a lot to do with the Mueller investigation and bodes very poorly for that investigation.
Yeah, as I was saying, I think it's a real body blow to the Mueller investigation. Peter Strzok was the fundamental architect of the whole Russia collusion scandal or investigation as the senior lead investigator for the FBI. You can bet he would have been involved, for instance, in the creation of the FISA warrants, the spying on the Trump campaign, sending informants to spy on his campaign, working with Christopher Steele and Fusion GPS. And, of course, most infamously, he's writing these text messages around the same time saying how he's going to stop President Trump, how he has an insurance, or stop the election of then candidate Trump, and that he had an insurance policy in case he was elected. And then, of course, he then moved on to the Mueller operation for a few months until the IG discovered those text messages. So, you know, there'd be no Mueller operation, no special counsel investigation of the Russia collusion scandal, but for the actions of Peter Strzok and his top-level colleagues at the FBI. No Peter Strzok machinations, no special counsel operation. And when you've got this kind of fundamental basis of a special counsel operation so corrupted, you got to wonder why it's allowed to continue. Any other criminal investigation that had a cop, a dirty cop, doing the sort of things that Strzok was doing with political animus, you know, they come in and probably shut it down. But Mueller's allowed to continue, and it ought to stop.
But Tom, someone above him had to know that this was going on. Someone above him he didn't just operate in a bubble, right? So who knew? Well,
yeah, everyone knew. When you look at the FISA applications that were really fraudulent, sent to the court to get these spy warrants on Carter Page, who at one point had been part of the Trump team and was an indirect way of spying on the Trump team. They were using this Clinton DNC dossier. They all knew or should have known. Andrew McCabe, the number 2 official at the FBI, fired. James Comey, who had been fired, the number 1 official. Even, what's his name, Rod Rosenstein, and Dana Puente, who are 2 current Trump administration officials, Obama holdovers, they should have known. And, of course, Mueller knew. He benefited from the warrants as well. One was signed during his tenure. So it's not just Strzok who's responsible. It's the others who signed on to this crap that was otherwise known as the FISA warrants.
So how do you get to them, since they're the ones in charge of the investigation? So we're looking for them to investigate themselves?
Well, you raise a good question, a good point, Mary, and that's why the investigation should be shut down. A separate investigation should be launched into the illicit targeting of President Trump and highlight it with a focus on all these abuses I'm talking about. Now, supposedly the IG is looking at it, but who knows when the IG is going to issue this report. In the meantime, this Mueller train keeps on rolling along.
And there's that U.S. attorney in Utah, right, John Huber, who's supposedly assisting with the inspector general on that, but we haven't heard anything about that for some time.
Well, he's supposed to be doing criminal investigations, or no, recommending whether to do criminal investigations. So I think that's kind of more of a
distraction.
Window dressing.
Yeah, okay. You know, Peter Strzok fired. His attorney had released a statement, but he was also on MSNBC yesterday. I'll play a little bit.
Oh, he was on MSNBC. Amazing.
What a shock. Play a little bit of it for you this morning.
I don't think that you can rationally reach any conclusion other than it was political. It's difficult to believe, given the steady drumbeat of text demonizing Pete from the president and all the calls on Capitol Hill by Republicans for Pete to be fired, that didn't play a role in the Bureau's ultimate decision.
Text messages displaying animus and political motivations. That's what Peter Strzok is blaming for his current predicament.
Look, he was fired for misconduct. anyone who had written text messages like that while handling sensitive national security investigations, they should have been walked out the door many, many months ago as soon as it was discovered. And he's lucky. It's only because he's a federal employee, a senior-level FBI agent, that they bent over backwards. Look, the initial review was to let him keep his job and just suspend him or for 60 days. Ridiculous. He should have been fired.
Yeah, there's some thick irony in the lawyer's defense here, being that it was too politically charged. That's the reason he got canned. More on this in a moment. We'll have more with Tom Fitton right here in studio as the president tweets about this man this week.
Oh, Peter Strzok didn't need any help at all demonizing himself. He had that fully covered.
All right, we're live in studio with Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, reacting to the firing of Peter Strzok. Tom, one of the first things Pete Strzok did is start a Twitter account, follow Rosie O'Donnell, some resistance figures, some conspiracy theorists. What message, and also raise a GoFundMe page where there are actually people donating to him. What message does that send to you? I mean, this is not a man of dispassionate law enforcement. He immediately jumped right back to form.
Well, it shows you he's political. He's an anti-Trumper, proving the whole point. And he was willing to bring the politics into the job. And that's why I don't think firing is sufficient. It's necessary, but not sufficient. And he ought to be subject to a criminal investigation for abuse of authority on his job.
Haven't heard much about Lisa Page, the other half of this. She supposedly gave very different testimony than he did in the closed door sessions. Do you know anything about her and where we are with her right now?
I don't. According to reports, she said the text messages mean what they said. Peter Strzok would say, I don't frankly understand what he meant when he tried to describe what he meant by an insurance policy, or what he meant by saying we'll stop Donald Trump. Lisa Page said, well, the text messages supposedly say what they say. What else would you conclude? They didn't want him to be elected. Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, were going to stop Donald Trump. They had an insurance policy, and it suggests that it was insurance policy related to official FBI action. Look, the IG concluded there are reasons to question Peter Strzok's motives and whether it impacted his job. And the fact that it took as long as it did to fire him tells you more about the way the federal government operates and the deep state operates than Peter Strzok's ethics and fitness for the duty.
Now, we're expecting to hear more from the Inspector General, potentially on Peter Strzok. No, I mean, the Inspector General has, in testimony, suggested that further inquiry it continues.
He's looking at all the issues we're talking about,
right.
Whether politics, I think, infected the targeting of the Trump-Russia collusion investigation. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But as I keep on saying, in the meantime, we've got this Mueller investigation whose foundations are corrupted. And that's why I think it needs to be stopped.
Should Mueller not take a page from the FBI here? The FBI is very concerned about the appearance of political bias in its ranks, firing Peter Strzok for those texts. Should Bob Mueller take a page out of their book and say, he did fire Peter Strzok, obviously, but not step out and make a statement? He's been very quiet. Make a statement about the authenticity of his investigation in light of guys like Peter Strzok being the animating force on it in the first place.
Well, I've long been saying Mr. Mueller should be called to testify to Congress, and I don't think he should be asked, what are you investigating today and tomorrow, but about these fundamental issues about how was Strzok handled, why was he removed, and no one was told about the reasons he was removed for 4 months, about the circumstances of his hiring. Remember, Comey stole his FBI records, leaked them with the specific intention of getting Mueller hired. The administration of his investigation. Why can't he find any Republicans to be prosecutors on his team?
Yeah, you'd think if there was one, that would have leaked out a long time ago. Tom Fitton, thank you. Always pursuing the government. Really appreciate you stopping by and talking to us this morning.